Hey friends, we're going on a road trip up north to Berjaya Hills, a highland resort destination that's 2,600 feet above sea level. Along the way, we're going to stop by Melaka, where we're going to have two rounds of breakfast. First, we're going to the oldest dim sum restaurant in Melaka, and then right after that, we're going to visit a cafe that's hidden at the back of a clothing store on Jonker Street. Our final stop in Melaka will be the Freeport A'Famosa outlet for a spot of retail therapy before we continue up north to stay at a farm. Yes, a farm for one night, and the next day we'll embark on the final leg of our journey, driving further north to Berjaya Hills, where we're gonna stay 2 nights in a charming little French-themed village, take a lovely morning stroll at a Japanese garden, spend the afternoon at a rabbit park, and visit Bentong town in the evening, which is famous for its ginger that some say is the king of ginger. Phew, that's a lot to unpack, so let's get started. On our previous road trip to Kuantan, Malaysia, we were caught in a 2-hour jam at the border even though it was only 5:30 AM when we got there. For this trip to Berjaya Hills, we were determined to avoid the jam, so on the day itself we got up even earlier, bundled everybody into the car and zipped off as soon as we could, and we managed to reach the Woodlands checkpoint just a few minutes before 5 AM. And this time, our effort paid off. There was still a queue, but it was much shorter, and it took us less than 40 minutes to clear both checkpoints and enter Malaysia. As soon as we crossed the border, we proceeded straight up to Melaka. It was still dark and quiet in JB, and there were very few cars on the road. The drive was mostly smooth and uneventful, not a lot of traffic, which made it quite a pleasant ride. When we arrived in Melaka, just for fun, we checked the Beat the Jam app to see what the traffic was like at both land checkpoints. It looked like a 2 to 3 hour jam at either checkpoint, and this was on a weekday. So we felt a sense of relief that we had avoided the jam by making the effort to get up at an ungodly hour. As a UNESCO World Heritage Site, Melaka is a vibrant city with a rich history and diverse cultural tapestry shaped by the Malay, Chinese, Indian, and Portuguese heritage. Other than the many historical landmarks here, such as the A'Famosa Fort or the Stud Hash, Melaka has an amazing culinary scene. And along the ever-popular and always crowded Jonker Street, it feels like in every direction you head in, there's a restaurant or eatery you want to try. But with only a few hours to spare here, we had to make some tough choices. First world problems, am I right? So our first stop was the Low Yong Moh Restaurant, which is apparently the first ever dim sum restaurant in Melaka, having opened all the way back in 1936, that's before World War II. It's an unassuming, old school type of restaurant located minutes away from Jonker Walk. There's no menu here, but there is a sign at the shop front where you can see the prices. The servers will come to your table with a selection of dim sum and you just choose what you want. And here is a snapshot of what we had. Everything you see on the table here plus another 4 coffees set us back by 82 ringgit. Low Yong Moh's Google rating is 3.7 stars, and in terms of taste and quality, it feels about right. By the way, Low Yong Moh only offers instant 3-in-1 coffees, not the usual freshly prepared kopi that you're used to, so keep that in mind if you're not a fan of instant coffees in a packet. After our first breakfast at Low Yong Moh, we walked for a grand total of 2 minutes to get to the daily fix for our second breakfast. This cafe is nestled at the back of a clothing store. We got there at 8:50 AM, and even on a non-public holiday weekday, it was crowded. We couldn't get a table right away, but fortunately we only had to wait for 15 minutes. I can't imagine if it was a Saturday. Anyway, with a 4.4 star rating on Google, I was curious if the cafe will live up to that lofty reputation. And I wasn't disappointed. Other than the portion sizes, which were quite generous, I mean, okay, look at this humongous club sandwich that only cost 21 Malaysian ringgit. It tasted just as delicious as it looked. We also had the French toast, which looks like a piece of art here, the signature Gula Melaka coffee, which was sweet yet fairly strong, a hazelnut latte, and avocado shake. Our total bill here came up to 104 Malaysian ringgit, and I'd say it's money well spent. By the way, in our previous trip to Melaka, we stayed at the Apple Melaka, so if you're planning a trip here as well and you're thinking about staying at the Apple Melaka too, then watch our review via the link above or below to find out what we thought of it. After 2 rounds of breakfast, it was time for a bit of exercise. Well, shopping counts as exercise, doesn't it? So our final stop in Melaka was to Freeport A'Famosa outlet, where there is literally an entire Boeing 747 airplane parked right at the front of it. It's actually Coach Airways, which is apparently a retail concept store and cafe by the luxury brand Coach. The unique experience aside, the biggest question we had was, how did they get the plane here? Anyway, right inside the A'Famosa outlet itself, there's also a windmill, water fountain, and flower garden. There are more than 80 fashion brands to shop at here, and if you get hungry, also a decent selection of eateries. It was almost noon when we got there, and it had become incredibly hot and humid, so while everyone else went shopping, I went to Zeus Coffee to escape the heat, grab a cold drink, and relax in an air-conditioned environment. Okay, you got me. I really just wanted the aircon. Around 1 p.m, we concluded our little spot of retail therapy and drove for about 20 minutes to the east for our one-night stay at Durian Ecolodge. Here, you can experience what it's like to stay on a farm. Well, kind of. It's a bit small. You can probably walk the entire perimeter in 15 minutes. As you explore the farm, you'll find trees bearing fruit, including mangoes, jackfruit, longan, and of course, durians. It is Durian Ecolodge after all. It was my first time seeing a durian tree, and did you know that durians start out looking small and cute and innocent like this, and then eventually become this thorny, prickly, oval-shaped ball that you see here? Also, no cows or sheep grazing on this farm, just geese, ducks, and a cat? For entertainment, you've got power hockey, carom, a foosball table, and most exciting of all, the chance to ride an ATV. It was my first time on an ATV, and let's just say it vibrated a lot. Your main accommodation here are the caravans, which are located all over the farm. There's also a camping site if you want a more outdoorsy experience. You can spend a little more and stay in a suite with mountain view, aka the Pyramid Suite, which is exactly what we did. If you're curious what that's like, catch our next video for a full review of our experience at the Durian Ecolodge. Sadly, we did not get to have any fresh durians as it was out of season. Frozen durians were available, but naturally we passed. Better to eat fresh, right? Also, although Durian Ecolodge does provide snacks for tea time as well as breakfast, there's no actual restaurant here, so for dinner we had to drive out to the nearest town, Tampin, which was about 15 to 20 minutes away. We ate at Feng Wei Haixian Leng Qi Jiu Jia or Restaurant Feng Seafood. Rated at 4.3 stars on Google, albeit from only 23 reviews, we were curious to know what it would be like. We ordered sweet and sour fish, marmite pork ribs, salted egg chicken, drunken prawns, and an omelette. Overall verdict, pretty decent. Maybe not 4.3 stars, but somewhere in the vicinity of 4, I'd say. The drunken prawns dish was the anomaly. It was a little bit too salty, the taste of wine in the soup was a bit overpowering, and the prawns didn't taste fresh. Other than that, the rest of the dishes were quite tasty. Total damage, 180 Malaysian ringgit, which seems like decent value overall. After dinner, it was time for a bit of dessert. So we went to get ice cream from the nearby 99 Speed Mart, whose owner, by the way, just became a billionaire thanks to the recent IPO. As we enjoyed our ice creams that cost 1/3 the price we'd pay back home, thanks Malaysia, we noticed some of the houses here in Tampin looking kinda swanky, which made us wonder what the homeowners did for a living. Anyway, there didn't seem to be much to do in Tampin, so after dessert, we headed back to Durian Ecolodge and had an early night. Next morning, we woke up bright and early, had a simple but delicious local breakfast, went for another stroll around the farm, then started the 3-hour drive up north to Berjaya Hills. The route took us through KL and we experienced a bit of a jam on the way, especially around the tolls. Berjaya Hills is on the other side of the mountain range from Genting Highlands. Once you exit the highway, you'll drive on a long and winding road up the hill before you reach a checkpoint where you'll have to pay an entrance fee unless you're staying at one of the hotels there. As we were going to stay at the Colmar Tropicale, we entered for free. The Colmar Tropicale, a French-themed village and resort located 2,600 feet above sea level, surrounded by lush green forests and blessed with a slightly cooler climate thanks to its elevation. Its design and architecture were inspired by Colmar, a 16th century town in northeastern France. When you're there, and especially when viewing it from afar, it does look and feel somewhat like you've been magically transported to a small European town in summertime. Although that notion is quickly dispelled by the throngs of Asians, including ourselves of course, strolling through the stone-paved walkways of this French-themed village. It was very crowded on the Saturday that we checked in, full of visitors from Singapore and Malaysia, I guess, coming here for the weekend just like us. There's an Italian restaurant here called La Flamma which serves somewhat decent tasting pizza among other things. On our first night at Colmar, it rained heavily while we were out and about looking for something to eat for supper, so being able to tuck into a piping hot pizza while sitting outdoors, enjoying the cool gentle breeze and rain pitter-pattering all around us was a pretty nice and cozy experience. La Flamma only has a 2.8 rating on Google though, so keep that in mind if you're planning to dine here. But based on our sole experience here, it was okay. Other than La Flamme, there's also a French bakery here, a 7-Eleven convenience store, a Krispy Kreme, and of course, a Starbucks. Where can you go these days without a Starbucks around the corner? My only surprise was that there's no McDonald's. If you're looking to eat something a little different but don't want to venture out of Berjaya Hills, then simply walk over to the Chateau Spa and Wellness Resort, which is just across the road from Colmar Tropicale, and by the way, costs 3 times as much per night to stay at. The Chateau Spa and Wellness Resort is where you'll find the La Vie restaurant, an all-day dining restaurant offering a wide variety of cuisines, from Hainanese chicken rice and nasi goreng to ribeye steak and fettuccine carbonara. We ordered chicken cordon bleu, tom yum fried rice, cha hor fan, the Chateau Club sandwich, nasi goreng, and a couple of fruit juices. Our total bill here was this much, and while it was somewhat on the high side, it was totally worth it. Taste and quality were exactly on par with what we would expect from a restaurant in a high-end hotel, and they delivered. La Vie restaurant is rated at 4.3 stars on Google, and it's hard to argue with that. But back to the Colmar Tropicale. There's lots to do here, including riding the open-top minibus, feeding the swans, trying your luck at the mini carnival here, and so much more. There's an observation tower at the other end of the village where, after climbing 4 or 5 flights of stairs to get to the top, you can get some pretty awesome views of the village as well as the surrounding area. Drones aren't allowed to be flown here, so this is as high as you can get, legally speaking, but at least the view isn't half bad. You can also see several houses built on the side of this hill behind the village, which frankly looked rather precarious. By the way, we spent 2 nights at the Colmar Tropicale. On our first night, we stayed in the family room, and on the second night, the 2-bedroom suite. If you're curious to know what either room was like, keep a lookout for our video where we'll share our experience staying at both of these rooms at the Colmar Tropicale. By the way, I just realized that Tropicale, which is the way I've been pronouncing it all along, it's actually pronounced
Tropicale.
So yeah, the more you know. Alright, back to things you can do here. Just a little further north of Colmar Tropicale, about a 5-minute drive away, is the Japanese village, which includes a garden, tea house, spa, restaurant, etc. To get to this signboard you see here, you actually have to climb up these 88 steps and then walk for another 5 to 10 minutes down this path in a slightly uphill direction. Clearly an easy and effortless task for someone as fit as I am. Once you're at the top, it's a pleasant enough experience strolling through this Japanese-themed garden. You enter the garden through an archway built from bamboo, where you're then greeted by a scene that is faintly reminiscent of a Japanese village as long as you don't look too closely. And if you do, then you might notice a few plants and trees here that look a little out of place, meaning you would probably never find them in Japan simply because they're meant to be in a tropical climate. But there is a koi pond here which does enhance the Japanese theme and atmosphere, as does the little Japanese hut in the middle of the garden. And for an even deeper immersion, you can rent a kimono here for 25 ringgit and pretend to act like a Japanese, or at least how we imagine they would act. For example, here's our absolutely 100% accurate depiction of a Japanese mother teaching her young son to feed koi. Joking aside, this Japanese garden isn't very big, so you'll probably cover the entire garden in 15 minutes or less, but if you want to take lots of photos, especially if you rent a kimono, then maybe set aside 30 minutes. Next, we visited the rabbit park, which is about an 8-minute drive away from Colmar Tropicale. Entrance fee here is 14 ringgit for adults and 7 for children, but free if you're staying in the Colmar. In the rabbit park, you'll find several animals including guinea pigs, hamsters, parrots, chickens, hedgehogs, all of which are in cages, but there are goats freely roaming the grounds and somewhat boldly demanding food from visitors. And of course, rabbits, which you can feed and play with. Apparently, they have a bunch of activities you can do here as well, depending on the day of the week. There's also a small children's playground here, and massage chairs, which I guess are the adult equivalent of a playground in a certain sense. The rabbit park is even smaller than the Japanese village, so you'll probably see everything there is to see here within 10 minutes or less. After spending our morning at the Japanese village and the early afternoon at the rabbit park, we were feeling a little bushed. But despite that, in the late afternoon, we decided to take a drive up to Bentong, a town to the north of Berjaya Hills, to get dinner and buy some Bentong ginger, which is renowned as the king of ginger for its medicinal and healing properties. We had no idea what to eat in Bentong, so we simply googled and discovered Lemang Toki, which had a 4.3 star rating for more than 7,000 Google reviews. Lemang Toki is sort of an open-air hawker center slash food court with a wide selection of Malaysian food like nasi padang, ayam bakar, fish curry, and even prata. It's super popular judging by the number of cars parked on both sides of the road, even though it was not even 5 p.m. when we arrived and therefore not even dinner time yet. The name of this restaurant probably comes from the signature dish here, the lemang itself. Lemang is made from glutinous rice, coconut milk, and salt cooked in a hollowed bamboo tube and coated with banana leaves so that the rice doesn't stick to the bamboo. Here is a quick snapshot of everything we ordered. Of course, we had to have the lemang, but we also ordered ayam bakar, fish curry, egg prata, a couple of desserts. Total we spent at Lemang Toki was roughly 104 ringgit give or take, and it was totally worth it in my opinion. Definitely try the food here if you ever find yourself in Bentong one day. After dinner, we just used Google Maps again to find a random shop in Bentong selling ginger and headed straight there. The shop is called Produk Tempatan Bentong and it sells a lot more stuff than ginger, including various different kinds of honey that they apparently make themselves, as well as a wide selection of drinks and snacks. After spending way too long there browsing the shop and chatting with the employees about the benefits of Bentong ginger, we made off with our haul and headed back to Berjaya Hills to spend our second and last night there. On the way back, we got caught in a slight jam. I mean, what else is new? But we were also blessed with a view of the beautiful sunset over the mountains, which this shot here is unfortunately not doing justice at all. And with that, our stay at the Berjaya Hills ended on a happy note. We really enjoyed ourselves, even though we had to suffer a little when waking up early on the first day to beat the jam, as well as enduring the long drive up north. But the overall experience made it all worth it in the end, and we made plenty of happy memories that we'll cherish for a long, long time. So that concludes this travel vlog. Next up, an in-depth review of our farm stay at the Durian Ecolodge. At 400 Malaysian ringgit per night in the suite with mountain view and with breakfast included as well as a free ATV ride, was it worth it? Well, you're gonna have to watch our next video to find out. Alright, thanks for sticking around till the end. Catch you in our next video. See you soon.